look at what Owen did, what just stood out about his game filling in for Mac?
Yeah, it was good. I thought he was assignment sound, graded out pretty high. Played fast, tackled well, so I was pleased with what he did.
How did you kind of assess how you guys dealt with the run? Obviously, I'm sure it wasn't the success that you wanted. Was it just generally them coming at you? Was it scheme related? Was it just them bullying you? Like, how did you see that?
We knew going into the game that was going to be a huge part of the game because they had a good O-line, they had a good running back, and they were committed to it. They felt the importance of establishing a run game, and so we knew that was going to be a focal point and a challenge. And I think we got to assess every aspect of the run game. The scheme, the execution of the scheme, but just get back to the basic fundamentals too of playing with great technique, playing with great leverage, winning one-on-ones, tackling. I didn't think it was where it needed to be, and so that's something that we have to improve.
What were some of the challenges in defending Bryce on the run?
Yeah, quarterback like that, clearly, we went through that going into the game that he can beat you with his legs. Explosive scrambles. We didn't want to have any explosive scrambles, and one of those drives was pure scrambles, right? So, we had to get that corrected, and we should have been better going into the game. That starts with me of how could we have prepared better, because we knew it was an important part of it. But we could have prepared that better so that, that drive doesn't happen, because, that touchdown drive right there was because he got out of the pocket twice for 2 big gains. And so you have to rush together as a unit, 4 or 5 guys. You really try to rush 5 at times to fill up another lane, so that it shouldn't happen. Sometimes it was, related to, hey, here's how we could have ran this game better and not allowed for a lane, or here's how we could have rushed our one-on-one better so that, it closed out that space and it didn't let them get out. So handful of things that we need to do to correct that and not allow that to happen with a mobile quarterback.
What were the adjustments that you made? Kaiser had mentioned that one of the things was switching into a little bit more zone coverage, but it sounds like there was also some stuff up front that you guys adjusted.
Yeah, we talked about how we could be better with those rush lanes, and whether that was call driven or just technique driven, or within a call what we were doing up front, adjusted some things, and yeah, we did some different things in coverage as well.
It's one thing to have the running back go for a big game. When you have the running back and the quarterback both have big running games, what's the fallout of that? Do you have to go back and reevaluate, or kind of do you change the things, or is it just kind of you?
Well, I would look at it as 2 separate things, because one's happening obviously on a pass, whether that's a pass down, one of them was, or a mix down, or if it's the run game, completely different things. So you got to correct those issues separately.
With the Rams, is week 2 such a long time ago that you're not going to be able to really get anything out of that, or can you get something out of that?
I think you can get everything off of, as much data as that you find relevant. You got to filter the relevance of it. But yeah, I'll go back to even last year to, get information.
They've got a lot more pieces offensively than they had that first matchup, just getting a little healthier. What have you seen that are the biggest differences in their offense from when you saw them with 2 to maybe what they've shown opponents last year?
Yeah, they're playing good football right now, and you kind of said it. They have all their pieces. So, to me, they're a team that can win a game in many different ways. O-line's healthy, playing really good, creating movement in the run game. Obviously, we know that Kyron's a great running back, and he can take on the load and go win the game for them if that's what they need to do, or if they need Stafford to sling it all over the yard, and he's got weapons, and Higbee's back. That's big for them. Like they're dynamic, and so you have to be able to defend all those things.
Speaking of Stafford, you've gone against him quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
What makes him still especially at this point?
Yeah, he's playing.
So
yeah,
great.
This, and I don't think the arm talent has declined at all. To me, he's still a guy that can move around, extend, and make plays down the field as well. So I love watching the tape. I get enamored with how good of a player he is. I got a lot of respect for him. He's still playing at a very high level because of all those things. this is unbelievable to me. Some of the stuff that he's able to do, just being able to identify coverage pre-snap, at the snap, and then knowing where he wants to move people and puts the ball right where it needs to be.
Everyone talks about how tough he is.
Mm-hmm.
When you add that to the equation, kind of what does that do for a defense trying to defend a quarterback?
I mean, he's just not going to flinch. You gotta play 60 minutes of clean ball because you're not going to get him to play any lesser than what his ceiling is, just because you think you're getting him rattled. That doesn't matter to him. You know what I'm saying? So you got to play good the whole game.
Talking about a player's intelligence, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since Buda's contract extension. Maybe a big sigh of relief for you knowing you're going to have him for a few more years.
Yeah,
on this
phenomenal
team.
feeling. Yeah, absolutely.
I know we've asked you about him and what he brings. Just having that and having the front office say, we see you as a key piece in this defense moving forward, and his desire to want to sign here before even testing the market. I mean, what really does he bring to this defense?
A lot, I think, to put it simply. It did mean a lot to me that, he took, that deal and that he's going to be here, because I just feel like he sets the tone for the locker room. I think he pushes us coaches because he's so intelligent. Good players are going to make you a better coach because you have to bring it every single day on how can I make this guy a better player, because he's watched all the tape too. He's looked ahead at the game plan on what we're going to do, days in advance before, we even put it in on that day. And so he's going to have all kinds of questions. He's going to make the people around him better. And, that's just the guy that we're talking about before we hit the field, right? And I think we all see the guy that he is between the white lines. So it meant a lot, I think, to this whole organization. But I think, for me specifically, it was definitely like, I gave one of those Tiger Woods fist pumps when I heard the news.
The takeaways have been pretty low.
Yes, they have. Yeah.
And I know it's not something you can decide to say, oh, let's get a takeaway. What do you think is the difference that creates those, that makes a difference between some teams and then a lot of teams at the top of the league have a lot of them, and the teams that kind of in the middle or below don't have many?
Yeah, a lot of different ways to take away the ball. As far as taking it off ball carriers, stripping the football, it's something we work on. It's something you can ask the players. I harp on it every single day, probably to exhaustion. But I think that's important to practice it, and it's got to show up in the game. So, I think it's important that you point out when we had attempts at the football and we took them and it was almost there, because you don't know, there is a little bit of as long as you shoot your shot, you're not going to be 100% with it. And so you got to say, hey, that was a good job right there of, hey, way to attack the football. I mean, he had good ball security, but you got to keep going after it. You got to reinforce that. And then when you miss those opportunities, practice games, I can think of a specific situation yesterday or last week in practice where I was like, strip it out. That's the situation we talk about right there. Boom, catch, turn, ball's right there, take your shot. And so you got to continue to practice that. I think another way that you generate them is you got to get people behind the sticks, and you got to get after the passer. And whether that's, taking the ball off the quarterback or forcing throws, and being in the right spots on the back end and capitalizing on them. So it's a combination of all those things, and you have to practice that, and then it's got to show up in the game.
You mentioned tackling was an issue. At this point in the season, A, how frustrating is that it's still a thing, and B, how do you rectify that at this point?
Well, I think, it's more about being consistent with it, because I felt like there's been games where I would say, man, that was a good tackling performance, good job, and it's been here at times, and then it'll drop down like it can't drop down. So we got to find a way to be consistent with the tackling. We got to coach it. We got to continually practice it. And again, just like the takeaways, it has to show up in the game. So there's so many layers to tackling of it has to be at the forefront of development with our technique, like fundamentals, like it has to be happening in practice, whether it's in individual or in a team period. We harp on that as terms of finishing in a position where you could make a tackle, right? We're not going to the ground in practice, but finishing on the right leverage, finishing in the right spot, bending the right way, and putting yourself in that position. So in the game, you're getting yourself in that position. You got to go finish those tackles. So, and then on game day, it's a little bit of you have to have your mind framed the right way that you're going to go tackle the right way, and you're going into warrior mode a little bit. You got to go accelerate through it and be violent.
When you get into these division rematches, right, and you played them twice last year and you got a full season worth of regular season film, can you still count on seeing unscouted stuff? Will you see, at some inevitably, you will see?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say you probably see unscouted stuff from everybody, and it can depend on. You have to be able to look at the course of the year. They could be doing some new stuff that you necessarily didn't get the first time you played that you might see just because they found it to be part of their identity. Other stuff might show up, the stuff that's hurt you from the previous stretch of games that when you had played them last. And some stuff is just going to be some stuff that they're probably drawing up that it's the known unknown that I know they're going to have some great concept dialed up, and hopefully we're in the right call.
Speaking of scouting, in overtime yesterday on Chuba's first big run to kind of get them into field goal range, it looked like Zaven thought it was going to be a play action. Did you guys kind of have that look scouted to think it was going to be a play action?
No, they did a good job of, dressing it up formationally and giving it a lot of, I would say, like eye candy to get to a run that they'd been running. So, credit to them, really good design, but that's something we got to learn from and correct it. So it's not necessarily that we were guessing for a play there. They did a good job.
How would you assess LJ's season so far?
Yeah, I would say he's improved, and I would say he's also stepped into a good leadership role. And you got to, last year was his first year on the team, and then his season was cut short very early, and so you got to have, I feel like he needed time to settle in and play and speak with his pads before he could. Well, LJ's going to speak regardless. He's got a lot of energy, but from a leadership standpoint, I'm very happy with the strides he's made, and he knows that he's a leader. I actually talked to him about it last week. Like, you keep leading that room because he's been around now in the NFL for a minute, and he's got some experience that he can help those young guys out and bring them along. I just love the way he comes to work every single day, practices so hard. Great attitude, and it's showing up on Sundays. He's getting better, and he's being productive, helping us win games.
Even though he's been around for a while, it seems like this is his first kind of regular playing time in his career. How has he embraced kind of that opportunity?
I mean, he's taken advantage of it, is what he's done, and that really comes from, his mindset, and then just putting in the work and taking advantage of that opportunity. He knew that if he was going to get that opportunity, he was going to take full advantage of it, and he's done that.
Nick, how did it kind of hit you yesterday being eliminated from the playoffs, and does that influence at all the way you call the next two games?
No, it will absolutely not influence how the way I call it because, you're trying to win the game. So whatever it takes to win the game, obviously disappointing because in terms of being eliminated, because we set out with a goal as a team, and we fell short of that goal. And now it's about how can we be resilient to take the next step so that when we are in position where we want to go achieve our goals, we're ready to take advantage of that opportunity and finish the job. So we got a huge game in front of us where we can take a step as a team and get better and continue pushing the needle in the right direction.
You and, I guess, the entire defense swallowed the fact that you guys were in first place a month ago, and now you're eliminated from the playoffs.
I mean, we've always looked at it as 1 week at a time. We weren't really looking up at that point and trying to figure out what the playoffs were. We needed to do a better job every week in and week out, and win more games and put ourselves in position where this game would be a bigger game than it is. I mean, it's a big game, but, with more on the line than what it is. So, we got to, assess just how can we improve those games so that when you're at this point in the season, you're in that playoff, that picture.
On On that touchdown to Thielen early, was there a miscommunication on that left him so wide open?
A little bit of miscommunication, a little bit of just seeing the route out as it was and matching it the correct way. I would say is the biggest thing.